Rishi Sunak has promised to stop the boats. Is that even possible?
Very difficult to say if it will be possible, but I agree that it's a wider problem. It's not only what is happening in the Channel. I think we have to look at migration routes from Libya, from Turkey, from Tunisia, from many other countries. We have climate change, which is producing more refugees. So in the end, I think what we will need is a stronger international cooperation to cope with this problem.
I just want to have a look at some figures, if I may, because I think if we look at the graphic that I'm about to show you, Germany is clearly more asylum seekers than the UK. You can see the UK there in red. This is the number of asylum applications per 100,000 people. Germany all the way up there with 178, the UK down at 87. How much of an issue is it in Germany?
It is an issue because we have more than 1 million refugees who came from Ukraine. So that is already a heavy burden, plus all the others from Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan. So we are also in a debate about what to do and how to distribute the burden. But the difference is that in Germany, asylum and to claim asylum is a constitutional right. And so everybody who comes legally or illegally can claim asylum and will be listened to.
That's interesting because obviously in the UK, there's a very clear distinction between people who come through the legal routes for the schemes with Ukraine, for example, and people who enter on small boats. Many people think the only way to actually stop the boats is to sign a returns agreement so that they can be sent back to France. But obviously that would mean not signing a returns agreement with France, but with the EU. Do you think that's something that the EU would consider?
I'm not sure that the EU will consider that, but the better way, I think, is to talk to countries of origin, like Albania. Because in Germany, we also, I think, only accept less than 1% of Albanians as real asylum seekers. The majority comes for economic reasons. So we have an agreement to return them to their country of origin, and I think this is the way to go. But let me really clearly say, Sophie, that for us, I think the important thing is to respect international law, and that means the Geneva Refugee Convention and the European Convention for Human Rights.
Do you think that the UK is respecting international law then?
I've seen that the Prime Minister made a statement at the French-British summit where he clearly stated that the United Kingdom is going to respect international law.
OK. Let's move on to Ukraine, shall we? The International Criminal Court has issued an arrest warrant for Vladimir Putin. Is that news that you welcome?
It's definitely a very important moment for international law, for the international criminal justice, because it means really accountability at the highest level. And so, yes, we welcome it. And on Monday, we are going to have here in London a conference. Dominic Raab has invited justice ministers from all over Europe to discuss how we can strengthen the work of the International Criminal Court. And I think it sends a very clear signal also to everybody in Russia about what can happen if they are part of crimes against humanity.
Do you think it sends an important message to other global leaders as well? Vladimir Putin's due to be meeting the Chinese president, for example. Do you think it will perhaps send a bit of a signal to countries who are perhaps not recognising Putin's crimes?
Yes, definitely. And we have 123 countries who are part of the International Criminal Court. And for all of them, it will always be a question, can you still talk and receive somebody like Putin? And there is an international arrest warrant. So all of that will limit Putin's possibilities. But Sophie, let me also say that we have to look also at the political fallout of that, because what does it mean? Will this mean that Russia's position on the war will harden even more? So there are many, many implications which need to be taken into account.
And you think there is a risk of that?
There is a risk of that, but at the same time, I think within the Putin administration, many people will have now second thoughts about their participation in this crime of aggression, in this war.
Now, let's talk a bit about weapons, because Poland and Slovakia have decided to send fighter jets to Ukraine. Do you think Germany would consider doing that in the future?
We don't have the F-16s. Ukraine has requested, but nevertheless, I think it's a very important move by Poland and Slovakia to do that. We are currently putting together a big international alliance to send the Leopard tanks. So we are building up more than 2 battalions, tank battalions. Training has just finished. And I would expect the Leopard to arrive as soon as possible in Ukraine.
Germany, for obvious historical reasons, has a reluctance to send armaments, to keep dragged into conflicts. How much of a journey would you say that your country has been on in the last year with the war in Ukraine?
Yeah, it was a fundamental change of our policy, not only on arms delivery, but also towards Russia. But I mean, the fact that we are now leading this coalition to send a large amount of tanks, to maintain them, to procure the artillery, the ammunition, the logistics, I think all of that shows that Germany is now really in a leading position on supporting Ukraine. On the military side, we are more or less at the same level as the United Kingdom. But if you take everything together, we are, I would say, the second supporter of Ukraine internationally.
Do you think you're a bit slow off the mark initially?
It was a more difficult discussion in Germany. That's something very clearly. And we had to totally restructure our Russia policy. That's why it took a little bit longer than in other countries.
And is that because of the energy dependence on Russia in particular?
No, I think it had more to do with the historic relationship. We should not forget that the Soviet Union was part of achieving German reunification, that we all tried to build up a system in Europe where we could include Russia in an international security architecture. And regrettably, that has failed. Now we have to learn our lessons from them.
It's interesting to hear you talk about that so openly. Now, I want to talk a bit about Brexit because, of course, we have the vote in the House of Commons on Wednesday on the Windsor Framework. What is your message to Conservative MPs, to DUP MPs, Unionist MPs from Northern Ireland, who might be looking at this and thinking, I can't support this?
Yeah, I think it's a very good compromise that has been worked out quietly over 4 months between the European Commission and the British government. It's a compromise, like always. It preserves the Good Friday Agreement. It preserves East-West trade. It means that the border between the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland can stay open. So I think it achieves all the main objectives. And what I hear very often from business people in Northern Ireland is what they need is predictability and stability. And I think the Windsor Framework can achieve that.
I guess if from the unionist perspective in Northern Ireland, their priority is being treated like the rest of the UK, so that they're treated in exactly the same way as Glasgow, as Nottingham, as London. And for them, that doesn't achieve it. Do you think that people in the EU really understand the depth of feeling from the DUP and others?
Yes, I think we do that, and the Commission has reached out. I myself have met several times Jeffrey Donaldson. Obviously, we understand the sensitivities of the DUP and other unionists. But at the same time, I think we need a compromise which allows us to have the necessary confidence in the agreement. And I think this has been achieved. So, Sophie, let me say that we are very confident not only that there will be an overwhelming majority in the House of Commons, but also that this is an agreement where we can build on to strengthen the relationship between the United Kingdom and the European Union.
How different has it been for the EU and for Germany and others dealing with Rishi Sunak as opposed to Boris Johnson and Liz Truss?
I think that with Prime Minister Sunak, and especially the relationship he has developed with the President of the European Commission, Ms. von der Leyen, is a relationship of trust. And this is something we can build on. So we have full confidence that the British government is really going to implement what was agreed. And as we know, that was not the case with Boris Johnson.
How would you describe the relationship with Boris Johnson?
I would say that the relationship was really at a very low point. There was no trust that things that are agreed will be implemented, and this is absolutely different now. So I think we can look into a brighter future in the relationship between the United Kingdom and the European Union.
OK, thank you very much for coming on the programme.
Thank you, Sophie.